On today's episode of Cheating When Love Lies.
It seems fun and thrilling to have an affair, but what happens when you get caught? We'll find out today from my guests, Shauna, an attorney, and Trevor, a psychotherapist. I'm here with my very good friend, Shauna Hamilton Doster. Shauna is a matrimonial attorney in the state of Connecticut, and she's here with me to talk about having an affair and getting caught. Shauna, thanks so much for coming in.
Hi, Jillian. Thanks so much for having me.
So we're talking today about getting caught in an affair. Every cheater's biggest nightmare, especially the women I talk to who have been in these extramarital affairs. They're saying, if my kids catch me, I'll die. They're so much less concerned about the spouse. So how often do you see adultery, cheating, and affairs as the cause for divorce versus financial issues or simply growing apart, or even in some of the saddest cases, mental or physical abuse? How prevalent is an affair as the cause for divorce?
It's extremely prevalent. And I would say that looking at my cases, at least 75% of them involve infidelity.
Come on, 75%.
If not more.
No.
Yes.
So what's the primary way that spouses and partners find out about cheating?
Well, you know the typical ones. Read their emails, break in their phone, read their texts.
Now, how do you break in the phone? I've always wondered that. Like, are you looking over their shoulder for the password?
I mean, I think so. Or they wait till they fall asleep. I've heard that. And then they, use the code that the family uses, and it happens to be the phone code. Or the spouse doesn't have it locked because that looks suspicious. And when they fall asleep, the wife picks it up and reads and finds one or more multiple affairs.
Okay, you say the wife finds out about one or more affairs. But I got to stress the point, Shauna, that women and wives are having affairs too.
They are cheating. They are. And so that wasn't really fair of me to indict the entire male population.
That's okay. What are other ways spouses find out?
Overheard conversations.
Tell me about that. In the world of texting, who even talks on the phone?
I had a case where someone was standing above their spouse on a balcony on the second floor. The unknowing spouse was sitting outside on the veranda talking to their lover.
No.
And the wife heard the entire conversation. I mean, how stupid are you?
Well, I think the guy just was jonesing to get caught.
Possibly.
When he got caught, how did she react?
Oh, well, it wasn't there, obviously.
Okay.
But she had no idea. And this is another thing. Like, I think people need to have their eyes open.
They do. Shauna, for me, it's denial. I believe, and I've observed in my, working on this project and research, people live in denial.
They absolutely do.
Right?
And there's a lot of people. This is the other thing, that the affairs that are going on run the gamut of demographics. It can be from the plumber and the electrician to the cable guy all the way to the billionaires, right? And I think that a lot of times the spouses do bury their head in the sand. This is not a client, but billionaire family, and she doesn't want to give up her lifestyle.
Yeah.
So she puts up with the multiple affairs that he's having or has had.
I have to imagine that sometimes people just confess.
Sometimes they confess. Sometimes it'll be an anonymous tip. Sometimes it'll be
Tell me about the confessions. Why do people confess? Why would you? I mean, if you're philandering and cheating, that's a hidden behavior. What suddenly makes you want to confess?
I mean, I can only speculate, but I think that people decide they're in the middle of this affair. They want out of their marriage. And they go to their spouse and say, I'm having an affair. I want a divorce.
Yeah, I did have this one story where the guy gave sort of a pseudo confession. So he and this woman, both married, were having a car affair. So they just get together occasionally and, have sex in their cars. So one day the woman's husband finds out and he calls the married cheater and says, I am not going to tell your wife about your affair. I prefer to hold this over your head so you have to suffer for the rest of your life wondering, when the other shoe's going to drop.
Oh.
So the married cheater runs home and quote unquote confesses to his wife. So he could give her the whole, oh, it meant nothing to me speech. It didn't mean anything. And he controlled the narrative. So that's kind of like, a forced confession. I have heard of that.
Oh, my goodness.
Okay. So we have overheard conversations. We've got confessions. How else do people get caught having an affair?
There is the anonymous tip. Somebody leaves a note. They've seen them together.
Like from a third party.
Correct.
Now, why would somebody do that?
Maybe they feel bad for the person. That's the only thing I could think that.
Mind your own business. Am I wrong or mind your own business?
I don't know. Would you want to know?
Yes.
Yeah. Would you want that anonymous tip?
Yes.
Yes. Anonymity is hard now, right? Because you can't, you're going to make up a fake email address, fake phone number.
Yes, some people do that. They go to that extent. They create fake email address, fake phone numbers, everything.
There's also the scenario where your friends see the spouse on, name it, Tinder, Bumble, right? So...
Oh, I don't even feel sorry for that spouse, because if you're going to go on one of those sites and think no one's going to see you, hello.
Yeah, you're a fool.
Right. You don't need an attorney. You need a psychiatrist. That's just stupid. So as we're on this topic of getting caught, who cheats more, Shauna? Men or women? Or is it even?
So I would say that the cases that I have seen, it's pretty much equal. And then anecdotally, I've seen as many women as men having affairs.
Do you know why men cheat versus women?
If I were to speculate based on what I've heard my clients tell me and what I've seen, I think that men cheat because their wife isn't having sex with them.
That's rough.
Plain and simple.
Okay.
And women cheat because they don't get the affection they want from their husband. But, I think that it is for both men and women the idea that they're just not getting what they need from the other person. And they think that there's something more out there that will fulfill them. In our as you get older, I think.
Wait, did you say our demographic old? I'm like, wait.
I know. I was... For the old people that are having their midlife crises, I think that they're start thinking they're running out of time. And is this all there is, right?
Is this all there is?
Right. Is this as good as it gets?
What about the women when they're cheating? Would you say that for women, they tend to end up with their lovers, or there's something different about the way that women cheat?
So I don't tend to follow my clients past the end of the finalizing of the divorce. I can say anecdotally from knowing the divorce community, I don't think that most of the women end up with the people they've cheated with. I think that's
a huge insight, because we tend to think of women as, the ones that are romantic and they want love and they want devotion. Why are they cheating if they're not ending up with these guys?
Again, my speculation is that they've been unhappy. They use this affair as the strength that they need to end what they've been really unhappy in. And they're comparing their current situation with the feelings they're having in the new situation. And yes, I think there's some hope that this next person can be the one, but they're also recognizing that they could feel a different way, have a different life, find happiness. I don't think they're necessarily doing it to be with the person that they are having the current affair with.
When the woman or wife is cheating and having the affair, how, in your experience, do most of the husbands react? Is it screaming, yelling, invectives, or do the husbands tend to want to keep the marriage together and work it out?
I see a lot of cases where the woman is having the affair and the man doesn't want it, and he doesn't want her to leave. And he doesn't want to be divorced. And even though she's had an affair, he would take her back.
I didn't expect you to say that. I thought you'd say most men couldn't handle that type of betrayal and they just want to end it.
I personally think it's surprising. And I do think it speaks to people's ability to forgive, and that there is some modicum of true love and romance. They love this person so much that they're willing to forgive and, to preserve the sanctity of their marriage.
Well, I've got to challenge you on that one. And again, I'm no attorney. I haven't seen, the hundreds of cases that you have. But I think it's just resignation. I think the guy's like, you know what? For me to uproot, get divorced, the money, the kids, the embarrassment, right? Because he's the cuckolded partner. It's like, I don't know if it's forgiveness as much as resignation. For the men, particularly in midlife, they're scared. They're scared to be alone. Women, I found, have already esteemed that they've sacrificed as mothers for their families, for their children. They've sacrificed many times their careers, and they're ready to move on.
Mm-hmm.
And now, a message from our sponsor. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp Online Therapy. So you've all been hearing about my experience, my fantastic experience with BetterHelp Online Therapy and my amazing therapist, Michelle. We've been talking about everything from the daily stuff that just kind of gets on your nerves and how to cope better with it. But she's really been helping me with relationships and men. And with the holidays coming, it's really something that I want to get a grip on and I want to learn how to cope with, because everyone can experience feelings like loneliness or sadness when we're all supposed to be so happy and gay during the holidays. So I'm really enjoying my time with Michelle. BetterHelp is so amazing because I'm sitting in my kitchen eating a sandwich and getting the help I need. I don't have to leave my home. I don't have to drive. And they're so good at communicating with you. I get reminders about when my meetings are. I can do video. I can do audio. It's whatever I'm comfortable with. And it's so affordable. You can start your sessions in fewer than 48 hours. So why wouldn't you want to invest in your own self? Particularly now at the holidays when things start to get a little more difficult for everybody. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp and Cheating When Love Lies. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/lies. That's BetterHelp.com/lies. What about the children? How have you found that cheating and affairs affect children of all ages?
It can be very polarizing. Children get very mad at the spouse that's cheated.
Now, when we say children, do we mean young, older, or how old are these children?
In the cases that I'm thinking of, it's the teenage, preteens that are old enough to comprehend. Now, you would hope that the parent who's been cheated on would have the maturity not to tell the children. That doesn't always happen. Out of anger and pain, they will let the children know. Sometimes the children just know. I mean, we've had cases where the children are actually the ones that caught the cheater.
Oh, good Lord.
Overheard a conversation, saw the phone, told the mom.
And the kids find out.
The kids find out.
Then they tell.
Yes.
That is traumatic.
Yes. You don't get over that. You're on
No.
the therapist couch for a long time in your future.
Yeah. I knew a guy in his mid-20s when I was younger who lived in Italy. And since his teens, he'd been carrying the secret that his dad had a whole other family in Poland. Another woman with other kids and dogs, the whole nine. And the father made him keep the secret from his mother.
Oh.
And he was so tormented that even in his mid-20s, he was on the verge of a nervous breakdown. He felt like he had betrayed his mom and his siblings, and it was just horrific. Eventually, the father did come forth and tell the mother the truth about his whole other family. And for this guy, it was a complete change of life, of demeanor. He was liberated. He was freed. So I really feel for all the children of all ages.
And it's really, really unhealthy for a child to feel caught in the middle like that and have to, to experience that sort of
decision making.
Correct.
Right.
Thank you.
You've been caught. The cat's out of the bag. What's the first phone call you make? Are you calling your attorney, your therapist, your religious leader?
You're calling the person you're cheating with to tell them that hell has just broken loose.
Shauna Hamilton Doster, matrimonial attorney in the state of Connecticut, and my good friend.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much. Joining me to continue the conversation about getting caught in an affair is Trevor Crow. Harvard Business School MBA, which is just damn impressive, although it's her work as a certified executive coach and a certified EFT therapist that qualify you, Trevor, as the perfect person to provide the psychological perspective on getting caught in an affair. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on. This is so much fun. And yeah, there's so many aspects of getting caught in an affair, right?
Yes.
The person who is making the discovery that their other person is seeing somebody else, and that's devastating. For the person who has been doing the betrayal, sometimes it can be a relief, believe it or not.
That was going to be my first question. Getting caught in an affair is a nightmare. How do most cheaters react? Are they frightened? Are they relieved? What's the most popular reaction?
You know what? From what I've seen in my couples therapy, I would say the first reaction is gaslighting. And really? I'm not sure everybody understands what that term means.
Yes,
but the person who has been doing the betraying basically comes up with an alternate reality. No, you're crazy, absolutely wrong. You know, I'm not spending too much time with your best friend. That's really nothing about. It's just, you know, we have a conversation. So that's called gaslighting. Now,
and typically, how does the person who's being gaslighted respond? Does it take your intervention as a therapist to convince them that this is bullshit, or do they know?
You will. That takes a lot of therapy, because when your reality's been sort of warped by your partner for a very long time, it's really hard to get out of that. And that is part of a domestic abuse situation. There's a whole amount of emotional violence really going on there. So yes, that takes lots of therapy. And then sometimes whoever's getting gaslit does come to that aha moment. I want to live a life of clarity. I want to believe and trust in my partner. I've got to make some serious choices. And sometimes people change. And that's the coolest part of being a therapist, is when two people decide to look at their truth as a couple. Are we really here for each other? Do we have each other's backs? Are we really committed to one another? You can really shift a lot of things out of some pretty bad stuff into some really good stuff. So actually getting caught can be an incredible opportunity/gift, if you will.
Mm-hmm. How often does that happen, that the gaslighter changes, like you said? Somebody who's been lying, it's worse than lying, because it's convincing the other person that they're crazy. It's so abusive and harmful. How often is it possible for that person to change?
You know, it takes one of those rock bottom moments where that person says, you know what, I really am not that person. I don't want to be that person. I really want to show up differently. I need to work on myself. I have one example where the person who was doing the cheating, they had a negative cycle in their relationship when they felt their spouse was dismissing or diminishing them. The only way they felt, the person who did the cheating felt back to being powerful and vital, was to go outside of the marriage. Mm-hmm. So it took kind of two ends of the spouse that was dismissive and disappointed all the time, kind of trying to get their emotions out, discussing things, and the other person, instead of going. So some people might drink too much or gamble. This person was going outside of the relationship with sex as their numbing, and their way of feeling better and nurturing themselves, actually. And there was a lot of gaslighting.
In that case, was the cheater a male or a female?
Yes, that case, the cheater was a male.
Mm-hmm. I knew a guy once. I was very young. He was, my friend's boss. And he would gaslight his wife, and she'd say, but I found the phone number in your pocket. I didn't even wear those pants. What are you talking about? I mean, just really abusive. Or, I heard you on the phone with her. I wasn't on the phone. I was talking to your mother. What's wrong with you? Mm-hmm. I mean, these kinds of things are so abusive, because not only they lies, like lying is one component, but then convincing the other person that they're insane. So
unbelievable.
Hurtful.
It's incredibly bad, and it's pretty pervasive. Do you remember the song "It Wasn't Me"?
Yes. I loved that. So sorry. It wasn't me. It's a great song with a bad premise.
I mean, so, it's really strongly in our culture. And you really do have to be, if you're feeling like your person is like warping your reality, you need a lot of therapy. You need to step away and you might even need a separation for a little while and get how do we come to Jesus here and have a real talk? Mm-hmm. And again, I'm not going to say it can never happen that a gaslighter actually changes their ways. And I have seen affairs be actually really good for a marriage because the marriage was going off the rails. And when the affair came out or was discovered, both parties were willing to say, okay, let's roll up our sleeves and figure out why this marriage, this distance is, happened. How do we come back together?
You mentioned that in some cases, the cheater is relieved. Their cheater is relieved to be caught. Can you be more specific about that?
Yeah, because, I'll put it this way. Most people, I believe, want to live their truth. And when you're living a lie, you're telling lies, you're covering up, and you've got a secret relationship, it doesn't feel good. Mm-hmm. I will believe your whole system is set up to live your truth. And when you're not, it feels bad. And when it's discovered, it's like, oh, phew, now I don't have to lie anymore.
And what about the betrayed partner? Are they relieved because they might feel like, okay, well, at least now I'm dealing with what you are saying is the truth, right? At least now I have the facts. I'm relieved to know the facts, even though they're hurtful, or no?
That probably is not the initial response. Usually initial response to first discovery is outrage, fury, deep, incredible hurt. I mean, remember, the person who'd been doing the cheating has gone down a whole line of emotional processing to allow themselves to step out of the marriage, and they're already in one place. Whereas the other person who hasn't been cheating is like brand new to all this information. So it's this tidal wave of intense emotions. So to get to the place where both are willing to start working on the relationship, which is the point you're starting to talk about, which is, okay, now I'm relieved. Now I know the truth. Now we can actually figure out what it was that went off the rails. That's when we've de-escalated. That might take a couple months. It might take 5 years. It depends on the couple. So this is an interesting story. I thought of this after we discussed this, but I had a couple that he was discovered cheating with a workout trainer in a closet at the gym. It was a retaliatory affair on his part because his spouse had an affair like 25 years earlier.
25 years. Okay.
He had never felt that they processed her, that she was appropriately contrite, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So he felt like, I get to do this now.
Yeah. Do you agree with that? Is there a world in which, as a therapist, you'd be like, okay, I get that. That seems fair to me. And now, a message from our sponsor.
This is Walk-Ins Welcome with Bridget Fetisi.
I love hearing people's stories of resilience and grit. This is why I created this podcast.
We are very excited to welcome Jim Gaffigan, Yasmin Mohammed, Glenn Beck, Tim Dillon, Abigail Schreier, Jeff Garland, Ayan Hirsi Ali, Sam Harris, Heather Hying, Jonah Goldberg, Ben Shapiro, Glenn Greenwald, Sarah Shahi, Colin Quinn.
If there's a culture of victimhood, then let's tell stories of grit and survival.
Subscribe and listen now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
In this case, it actually worked in favor for the couple because she was like, she's kind of did what you just did, which is like, yeah, kind of, that's true. I'm really hurt. And okay, let's go back and unpack all that crap that we shoved under the rug 25 years ago.
Wow. Okay. I admire that couple because I do tend to be the person that says, don't I get my turn? If you're going to do this to me, do I just have to be the bigger person? I guess it's better to be the bigger person. Or is it?
I don't know. I don't think there's any bigger person in that story. You just have to you have to both advocate for yourself, but also be like, okay, so there's some things that I could have done wrong or differently. How could have I shown up? That doesn't mean you're abandoning yourself. You're going to take responsibility for it. Here's where I didn't show up. Maybe I didn't listen. Right. Maybe I wasn't supportive of you and your career choices, whatever it was, right?
Right. 25 years, though. That's
no.
He was hanging on for a long time. 25 years. Speaking of stories, share with us the story of the woman who believed her husband was cheating, and then she did some very elaborate forensic accounting to catch him spending big sums of money on his mistress. What was that story?
She was suspicious. There was a lot of cash stuff going on. She had to really figure it out, really dug down into what was going where, and it was through a cash situation. And then somehow or another found a receipt for some piece of jewelry. So it ended up at the jewelry store, and the owner was like, well, yeah, it was for a necklace. She's like, I never got that necklace. So that's how they came in, because he had to come up with why the necklace went to somebody else.
Oh, wow. Well, he didn't gaslight her. He confessed. He was like, you got me. You have the receipt.
You got
It's
Yep.
I've heard from many a jeweler. I have a friend that's a jeweler, and he said, Jillian, you can't believe the stories of people that come in to return stuff, repair stuff. And there was this one story where the husband had purchased this incredible piece of jewelry for the lover and not for his wife. So the wife goes into the store several days after he makes this purchase, and she's in there, and the salesperson says, your husband just bought such a beautiful piece for you. You must be so happy. Well, the wife was like, I didn't get a piece like that. So she goes home, confronts the husband, all hell breaks loose. And this poor jewelry salesperson ended up like having to leave the company because it was such a big snafu.
So they couldn't repair? The marriage was over? Or what happened?
I don't know how it ended. The point of the story was that, how people get caught. You're thinking that you're covering all your tracks, and then it's somebody, some third party that can reveal what's really going on. Are there stories of people who get caught cheating and still continue to cheat with the same lover despite their spouse finding out?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I've had various clients over many years who maintain relationships for decades. Literally decades.
They have a lover, a secret lover for decades.
Yep. And
is it the one person, or do they have like that lover plus other?
No, one person. And sometimes the spouses knew, sometimes they didn't. It's incredible. I've heard incredible love stories that managed to survive decades of both people having separate families and children and experiences and still maintain a relationship. COVID made a lot of troubles for that.
Yes.
Because some of this was based on travel for work.
What did they do in the case where they couldn't see each other anymore? Because, what if it's COVID or you can't travel or someone gets sick or someone is moved because of their job? Then what happens? They kept going with the relationship. I'd imagine over a 25-year period, there had to be times when they didn't have such great proximity to one another.
Mm-hmm, of course. And somehow or another, if you have this, I got to believe if you keep going back to the same person for 25, 30 years, there's something particularly vibrational in that relationship that is just not so easy to cut off. And everybody sort of managed through COVID, through all this stuff. And those connections just are, probably lifelong. It's wild. I have a few of those stories.
A few of them. What do the betrayed partners or husbands or wives, I'm assuming this happens with both men and women, what did the betrayed partners say? How did they accept finding out, catching that their husband or wife is having an affair with someone else, catch them, bring them back, see them go back again to the same lover, not a different lover, the same one, bring them back? How does the betrayed partner sustain any sense of self or dignity in a situation like that?
I think there's a lot of denial. I've had, both men and women decide I want this lifestyle. I want our family. I want our history. I want to be able to go to baby showers and weddings together. I have no intention of leaving my spouse. I love this other person deeply.
How does the betrayed partner stand? I just don't know if I could hear someone saying to me, I love this other person deeply. I made a mistake. It was a year, we were going through a hard time. But to really hear that their heart is committed elsewhere, does the betrayed partner ever get over that heartbreak?
I would be so heartbroken too. But some people, appreciate and value what they have and love their partner and somehow or another make room for that. We had this very brief discussion about consensual non-monogamy, which, Gen Zs and millennials are starting to really talk about and maybe figure themselves out through, because truly it is a pretty difficult thing to ask two people to stay monogamous for a possibly 60-year span of time.
Yes.
So these next generations are really asking themselves, what's better, to be open and clear or go be covert and have secrets? So I'm curious as to how this next generation or generations will tackle this problem. I think it's very difficult.
I contend that it's not only the being with the other person in an affair, but I contend that it's even more so the experience itself. It's the thrill. It is the secrecy. It's your own little private something that you share with another individual. It's thrilling. You and I talked about how people say, I felt so alive. It's the endorphin rush of feeling alive. If you sit down and tell your partner, Bob, I'm going to step out of the marriage in a non-consensual way, do you lose all that thrill and that titillation that goes with having an affair and a secret relationship?
I wonder. I'm not sure. Because I've seen those conversations go in a way of like, I cannot give up this other situation on the side, but I'm going to be clear with my spouse that I still have something going on.
But then they're not cheating. So I guess that's what I'm saying. Then you're not cheating. You just have an open relationship.
You're not cheating. Exactly. You have an open marriage.
Right.
But to your point, the words that people describe these relationships on the outside, once they're having something outside their marriage, is literally like, I feel so alive again.
Yeah.
I haven't had these feelings in years. It's this sense of I return youth.
Yes, younger. That's a big one. Mm-hmm. How often do cheaters lie in therapy about their cheating? I know a story of a guy. He was going to therapy twice a week in a super intensive program with his wife. His wife knew that he had cheated once, and she was like, okay, we're going to go to therapy. We're going to work it out. And they get this super intense therapist, and they're trying this style and that style, going constantly. They engaged in weekend trips to bring them closer together. Meanwhile, the entire time, he's doing it with somebody else 2 or 3 times a week. How do people sort of, justify or explain going to therapy, pretending that you're trying to make your marriage work, but in fact, you're cheating more than ever? Is that common?
So this has happened to me a few times, and I really, really dislike it when this happens, which is the couple will come in led by one spouse. The spouse is wanting to quote unquote work in the marriage. It comes out in an individual session that there's actually another person for that spouse. That spouse has actually exited the marriage emotionally. And they're basically using me to make an announcement. And so it goes 3 or 4 sessions. I'm now saying I will not hold a secret like that. We're going to have to find a moment to talk about the other person in your life. How and when would you like to get that going? And so usually that leads to the announcement of I'm out, I'm done with the marriage. And that's happened a few times. And it's, as a therapist who I believe in working through things, if you're sitting on my couch, I'm dedicated to figuring out an emotional way that'll get you two cracked open and reconnect and vulnerable again. And that is like, I can't do anything with that. They're gone. That other person's gone. But it's frustrating.
Frustrating. I think it's worse that you're going to the therapy session and lying. It's like you're compounding not good on top of worse.
I feel terrible for her, and I feel terrible for everybody in there.
Right,
and especially when there's kids involved.
Let's talk about the kids. How do children respond to affairs? some people are of the school of thought children are resilient. Our kids know that we love them no matter what. How do children, and I'm talking, minors, 18 or younger, how do they respond to affairs? And does it sometimes come out that the parent had an affair?
I'm a believer you keep most of your private stuff private. Your children don't need to know about affairs. They just need to know the very basics of mom and dad don't love each other anymore. We're always going to love you guys. The minute you go down a path of blaming one partner, and it's so easy to do, oh, your dad was cheating or your mom was cheating. So that now you're blaming and shaming the parent, and that actually lands very badly on the child. And look, every cheating situation, there's a component of something wasn't happening well in the relationship. Mm-hmm. I should put that in brackets, because there are people who cheat even though they're pretty happy in their marriages. So bracketed that, but mostly, right?
Typically.
So if you both take responsibility for somehow or another, we missed each other, I wasn't there, I wasn't emotionally connected, I didn't support you, whatever it was, and you found somebody else who did support you, well, that's a different conversation. But you're not blaming the other. You're going, okay, I'm hurt by this, but I'm also realizing that I had a part in that too. And that's nobody blaming each other. It's saying, okay, where could we have really done a better job? So by taking kids out and not talking to the kids about what happened in an adult relationships, I think is key to a clean, happy, simple divorce where the kids hear just, we love you guys. We're going to be great co-parents, and we're all about raising you guys. And there's no shaming, blaming crap coming out.
Now, what about a betrayed partner who says, listen, if my spouse has alcoholism or drug addiction or some other challenge, we talk about that openly. I've been the faithful, good parent. I've been the one that's been fulfilling my role as mother or father. I've been dedicated to the family. Why don't I get the opportunity for people around me to know the truth of what happened? Even if the children, maybe not young, but let's say they're 12, 13, 14, 16. Why should I keep this a secret when it's so hurtful to me and gives them a distorted view of the parent? Is there a world in which the child should have a more realistic view of who the parent is and how he or she behaves?
Yes, and when they're adults. You can have that conversation when they're over 18 or 20. You maybe kind of go, well, it was really painful for me back then because I discovered your dad was cheating on me and I just couldn't handle it. But at the time, in the crisis of a breakup of a marriage, your children do not need to be in the middle of adult relationships. They just don't. And it only does damage. It really does.
I wouldn't say to necessarily put them in the middle. And I'm not advocating for this. I'm simply asking the question. Because I'm going to say that I witness in this circumstance women, more so than men, women who are at their wits' end. The guy cheated on her, has a whole nother family and a life. Maybe he got the woman pregnant. She is at her. Now he's trying to stiff her on the money, and she's going out of her mind. And the kids are saying, well, what's wrong with mommy? Why is she so mean? Why is she acting this way? Does she not deserve to say, listen, let me tell you about this asshole? I mean, I don't. Well, I'm not advocating. Nobody write to me. I'm not advocating. I'm just talking about the fairness of. We're talking about truth. How come the betrayed partner doesn't have the right to say, understand why I am acting and behaving this way because of how I was treated? We don't do that with alcoholism. We don't do that with drugs. We don't do that with, financial loss. Why with this?
Again, what you're doing is you're maligning your kid's parents. So your children are half you, half him. So when you go down that road, oh boy, he was awful. He was a shit. Excuse my language.
No,
he did bad to me. He did this and that. You are telling the child that they're half bad too.
Okay. So in response to that, what about the father? And I want to typify, but I'm saying typically, let's say in the cases we're discussing, the father decides he's not going to pay the bills. Do we get to, and the mother, and they're like, Mom, why can't we go to blah, blah class? Do you get to say that?
you can be very factual and not emotional. You can say, I would love to be able to do that. Right now, we're having some issues financially. We love you. You're safe. I don't want you to be all stressed out. Your dad is having financial issues, whatever it is, trying to make it as...
Because he's spending the money on the mistress.
It's really bad. It's just what we don't want to see is parental alienation. And that's really damaging to the child. And it's very, very hard to do. And believe me, I'm speaking from... I wasn't perfect. And if you ask my children, they'd be like, yeah, Mom, you said some negative things about Dad. You're not going to be perfect. But if you can shoot for, I don't know, being pretty good about 30% of the time, it's better than just maligning the guy again. And it doesn't land well on the kids.
Right. I'm not advocating for it at all. I'm not, but I'm very curious because kids are smart. Kids are observant. They're observing the behaviors. Gee, let's put it on the mom now. Mom doesn't come home some nights. Mom comes home at 2 a.m. Mom is always running into the other room on her phone and, turning it over. And Dad's at his wit end. I just think that kids are smart. They're very perceptive. And in a sense, are we not gaslighting them by not leading them into? I mean, maybe there's a way that we could say, Dad and Mom felt like we weren't getting along. Dad felt like he could find this, or Mom felt like he could find this empathy or validation from someone else. I mean, as I hear myself talking about it, I'm like, I'd never do that, but I don't know. I just wonder.
Yeah, there's a very, very fine line. So here's the thing: you absolutely need to vent, and you hopefully have your girlfriends, your family, or your therapist vent away. You need to get all that out and be angry and yell and scream and be betrayed. Not to your children. To your children, you need to be as calm and we got this. You can say very clear facts.
Well, they're not facts.
We have less money. Your dad is got a new girlfriend. That's a fact. He's moved on. That doesn't change the fact that both of us love you and we're going to be great co-parents. Okay. And we're going to focus on the kids.
So let's move this forward. Let's move the ball forward on this and then I'll let it go.
Yes.
So I'm the kid. Let's role play. You just said to me, your dad has a girlfriend. Oh, really? When did he get the new girlfriend? Because he just moved out a week ago.
I don't know exactly when the new girlfriend came into the picture. Don't know. You can ask him.
Okay. I think okay.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Tough.
I don't have the answer. It's tough. I've witnessed people, both men and women, have to bear such cruel treatment from someone else. Cruel. And all they can do is zip it.
Awful.
It's awful. Trevor, can anything good ever come out of an affair which is so harmful and difficult?
Well, you know what? Believe it or not, I've seen affairs turn out to be a positive in the long run, that the couple wasn't in a very deep connected place. And it's an opportunity to really look at themselves and each other and figure out how to really communicate and be vulnerable and reconnect and have a much, much better, longer, deeper connection. So it's an opportunity if you look at it that way.
Yeah.
However, if whoever it is completely out and loves somebody else, then you really got to leave and clean it up.
The thought every time, and no matter how long I do the show, every time I hear that, I'm like, oh my God. I mean, it's so heartbreaking. Trevor, thank you so much for coming on. Is there a book or a show or something that you'd like to talk about that we can publicize?
Oh, great. Yeah. So you can, if you have gone through a divorce and you're looking to reconnect with somebody and you're blending, I've written a book called Blending Families, Emerging Households with Kids 8 to 18. I also have a social media-based talk show with Jill Pittsburgh. So it's called Trevor and Jill Talk. You can find us on Facebook, on Instagram. Our website is Trevor and Jill Talk. And of course, if you want couples therapy, you can always come find me at trevorcrow.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Trevor Crow, for coming in and talking about what happens in therapy when the cheater gets caught. We'll see you next time. Thank you for listening to Cheating When Love Lies. Please continue to review, rate, and share the podcast. We love to hear from you as well. Send in those stories.